Hi everybody, welcome back to the Raw Food Philosophy channel on YouTube. In this video I'd like to share my experience transitioning to a raw food diet. So I'd like to kind of share my story of kind of trying some of the different diet philosophies out there and kind of leading me to a raw food diet and lifestyle. And this, I do a very similar thing on the course on Udemy. It's one of the videos that you can see. You can see a free. You can set a certain amount of videos that you can see, you can watch without having to buy the course. So, very similar story that I tell is on the course page as well. So, but I'll kind of give a version of it here as well. So, like most people, I grew up as far as kind of diet is concerned. I grew up on what is typically called a standard American diet, which consists of kind of anything that was just out there. My breakfast was usually cereal, usually like Fruity Pebbles or Captain Crunch or Reese's Puffs or Cookie Crisp or, basically some form of sugar in a bowl. Sugar plus a couple Pop-Tarts. That would be my breakfast. My lunches were school lunch, so kind of whatever we were having. There was always, you could always get a burger and fries if you didn't like. I think there was always a burger and fries line. There might have also been always a pizza line, so you might have always had that choice. But kind of Italian dunkers, shrimp poppers was another one of my favorites. But kind of like burger and fry kind of stuff, burger and fries and pizza, school lunch. And then, dinners were, meat and potatoes type of things. My mom is a very, very good cook, a lot of different variety. We had, I remember like au gratin potatoes, a lot of like meat and potatoes kind of stuff. Cheeseburger soup stands out. I'm trying to think all the dishes I had growing up. But it was like a meat and potatoes kind of dinner in my house. So I grew up eating, basically whatever, junk food whenever, candy bars and chips and Gatorades, a lot of like Gatorade for sports, and just like kind of whatever was out there I would just eat, and as is the case for most people. So kind of that took me more or less through college and after college, and I guess I didn't really do a whole lot of thinking. We had a buffet styles meals at a meal plan in college that you could get a buffet every meal, which was again great for a college student. And, at that time in life, you can kind of eat whatever you want. And I kind of almost needed to constantly be eating because, I was constantly burning calories and just obviously burning a lot more calories. And naturally at that age, just kind of naturally more healthy. You could eat whatever you wanted. I remember like we went carbo loading, we called it. We went to like Olive Garden before like Thursday nights before a Friday night football game. We'd go to Olive Garden and get as much pasta in us as we could because then that was good carbo loading. So yeah, kind of like the whole load up as much as you can kind of thing. And as it happens over the course of life, that way of eating and living doesn't last a full life. Doesn't last a full lifetime. It works when you're 18. It doesn't work when you're in your 30s and 40s. So I'd say, in my late 20s, kind of in my mid to late 20s, I started noticing just like differences in my body. I couldn't just eat whatever I wanted all the time and have infinite energy. I couldn't my body wouldn't just kind of maintain itself. I wouldn't maintain athleticism or kind of like full health without, starting to work at it. And as part of that, so you kind of start to notice this kind of decline, right? At some point, it's probably different for guys and different for men and women, probably different ages that happens at. But at some point, you do start to notice like things aren't like on the upswing; they're more on the downswing. And I'm starting to lose different function. For me, a lot of it, joint stiffness and joint pain has been kind of an ongoing thing that I've dealt with over the years. I've had just a lot of joint pain in my ankles and my knees and my shoulders, and that's something that I've kind of started to notice in my probably later 20s. So I started experimenting with some different diets, and I've tried kind of a lot of these different world diets, and done a fair amount of reading in nutrition, and tried to experiment. I think, really broadly in life, like, you can read all you want, but until you experiment with things for yourself, and until you really try things out, you don't really know. You have to really do things for yourself to I think understand them better and understand them for yourself. So some of the diets I tried were, at one point I tried like a very high meat diet, probably not quite a carnivore diet, but I tried like really high meat diet. That was probably like in my late 20s. I tried keto, so like a very very high fat content, very something like 90%, 80-90% of your calories are coming from fats. So I guess I'll kind of tell you kind of what I thought about the diets as I went. When I was really high meat, that did not last very long, and I started getting like skin problems. I noticed a lot of redness in my face, like a lot of redness, when I was on a high meat diet. And maybe I wasn't getting the highest quality meats. I don't know. I don't eat meat anymore. Along the way, I became a vegetarian. Probably in my early 30s, I became a vegetarian. So that's kind of a thing of the past. But I didn't feel like a high meat diet was like the thing. I just didn't think it was making me feel great. I tried keto, right? Keto, so super high fats. A lot of my calories were coming from like avocado, tons of avocado, like coconut oil, butter. Like, you're basically loading up with as much fat as you, like fatty nuts, as much fat as you can get into you. And, you're trying to get yourself into ketosis, where you're burning fats for your energy source. And one thing that keto did was it took any type of extra fat, any type of extra layer you think you have on yourself. Keto sucks that right off. Like, you are, that is like off you, right? You're very much not down to the bone. That's kind of the wrong term, but it takes off kind of any extra fat you have on you. A couple things with keto. One, I didn't really like not having any sense of like buffer to me, like a layer of buffer, a layer of fat or something. I didn't really like it. I felt I don't know. I felt like it looked really like veiny. I didn't really like that, for one, and the other part was it was like so restrictive. It was such a restrictive diet to have that high of a percentage of your food coming from fat. It was like I could eat like 5 or 6 things. People talk about eating like a lot of bacon on it, but I wasn't eating meat, I think, at that time, so I didn't even have really bacon. So my diet was like mostly avocado and just butter. I mean, just it was I didn't feel like it was a natural diet. I felt like it was very restrictive. There was only a small fraction of things that I could really eat, and I didn't feel like it was sustainable. Like, the idea that I would go through the rest of my life eating just that very small selection of foods, it just also didn't feel natural, with like all the variety of food that is in the world. Like, to have such a high percentage come from these small sources just didn't feel like it was sustainable to me. So I tried keto. Some other little ones in there, but then like from there, mostly I went to like a traditional vegan diet. So my vegan diet was a lot super grain heavy, right? So my breakfast would be oatmeal. My lunch would be like rice and beans, or quinoa and beans, or a quinoa dish or a rice dish. And my dinner would be like pasta. So I used to say like, a British breakfast, because I had like oatmeal and tea. Um, and I can't remember. I had some phrase for that, but I had mostly it was very high grains. And one thing I noticed for sure on a vegan diet was that I was getting even more stiff. I was getting very very stiff. Like my joint pain was way worse. I was getting like I couldn't really run. I couldn't really like track down if I was goofing around with a basketball or football or something or a baseball. I couldn't run and track something down. I felt like I was getting just like a bigger gut. And I just felt like I was mostly just stiffened up. Like mostly I felt like I was just stiffening up on the diet. And I just felt really stiff. And that was one of the things that I kind of set out originally to try to solve was, joint pain and joint stiffness. And so I tried a vegan, kind of a traditional vegan diet, and I wanted that to work. I really wanted that to work because I like the idea of, like, I do think the best as far as like being, I mentioned that I became a vegetarian. I don't eat meat kind of as a matter of, it is an ethical thing for me. I don't eat meat anymore. With like animal products, I'm kind of like on the fence. I think that we can have good relationships with animals, and we can kind of like use a cow's milk and make products out of that. And we can have a symbiotic relationship with that cow. Like we could take care of it, we could use its products, but in practice that really is very rare for that to happen. Not only with just kind of factory farming and things like that, but just the fact that we're harvesting them for meat kind of at the peak of their life. Like there are some cases where you can like raise chickens and you could use their eggs and you could take care of a chicken. So I don't have there's nothing as a matter of principle that I don't eat animal products, but I did kind of want a traditional vegan diet to work because I felt like it was like a kinder diet for the world. It was a more it was probably a more ethical diet than a non-vegan diet. But I just didn't feel like a traditional vegan diet really was working. I always felt like I was kind of weighed down by having something in my stomach. Like I felt like I was taking really long to digest everything, and I felt really stiff. So that was kind of a traditional vegan diet. And then from there, I went to kind of that last step was like a raw vegan diet, which is like a whole different world. It's a whole different thing than a vegan diet. It is a drastically different thing. So I about a year and a half ago, there was some YouTubers out there that were talking about raw food diet and lifestyle, and I started watching some of their content, and I really thought like, this it makes sense. It makes sense to me logically that like the things that we would find and eat in their natural form are the things that are best for our bodies to have, and all the nutrition we need should come from like raw food. It should come from foods that we just find and eat in nature. And I think it's the most like natural way to think about food. So it made intuitive sense to me, and I said, I'm going to try a raw vegan diet, a raw food diet. So I'll get into my story quick here from there I tried this a raw food diet. And with the raw food diet, you go through, when you start to transition to a raw food diet, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Some people recommend starting with like a juice fast, like a 40-day juice fast. Some people try to go like cold turkey, like all raw food, and just kind of try to go cold turkey. And some people kind of ease into it. And but what you have to do is get through this detoxification period. You have to get through a very pretty drastic detox from my perspective. And so what I did was I started going like really high raw foods. I'd have these, most of the things in my diet. There was some back and forth. Like I'd get cravings and I'd have to go get like a macaroni and cheese noodles, or I'd get a burrito bowl at Chipotle or something. and I'd get these cravings, and there's kind of a back and forth with it. But I started having more and more a percentage of my diet were like raw foods, like raw and living foods that you would find and eat in their natural form. And when I did that, what happened during that initial period was what I would call detox. And what I'm interpreting as detox is like when I would have like fresh food, like food that I knew was healthy for me, like very healthy. I'd have like or a bunch of organic fruit, like an organic apple and some lettuce and like a whole lunch salad I was doing. And immediately after I had my food, I'd get a really bad headache, or I'd get a really bad sore throat, or I'd get a really, really runny nose. And it would happen like almost like in response to me eating that food in the moment. And that would happen like really pretty consistently. So I felt like kind of my body was just getting rid of things that it wanted to get rid of. And that's my interpretation of kind of detox, when you're having a food that is healthy for your body, but then you're having like some type of negative reaction to that. To me, that's my body like expelling things it needs to expel. And broadly during that time, I lost a lot of weight. I kind of immediately dropped weight. I lost about 25 pounds. So I dropped from like 210 to like 185. And I just flatlined. Like my body almost instantly lost the weight, and I just flatlined at 185. And during this time, this was like for months. This was like a long period of time, like months, multiple months, where I felt like I didn't really want to work out. I didn't have the desire to work out. I didn't have the desire to bike. I didn't have the desire to lift weights. I felt pretty low energy. I felt like I wanted to sleep a lot. Like I felt like I really probably slept a lot more during that time. And I really do feel like my body was just kind of like saying, this is just what we need to do right now. Like you need to just like rest, So I kept on, eating the raw foods, and basically just kind of like resting, not really doing too much, feeling like my body was kind of like reorganizing itself. Really I felt like deeply detoxing and clearing out your digestive tract, and even like I could almost like feel it in my bones and my heart. Like there was something about the process that really made me feel like I was going through something hard. And on the tail end of that, I'm not sure quite how long it was. Again, there was some back and forth in there. There was definitely some back and forth in there. But at the tail end, I kind of like regained all my weight. I put on what I believed to be like healthy weight, and kind of got right back up to kind of what my weight was before. And so on the tail end of that, I made it through to the other side, so to speak. And I do feel like my body like kind of like restructured itself from the ground up. And over time, I'm about a year and a half in now, and I do feel like a lot of things that were on the decline are now on the incline. Like I don't feel like I'm totally there yet, but I do feel like a lot of little things. In the course I made, I talk about some of the benefits I think you can get from the diet, and some of these little things, like even like your teeth, your gums, some people talk about like your eye whites, or your senses, your sense of hearing, your sense of sight, your skin, your circulation, all kinds of like little things. I do feel like a lot of the function that I used to have is like returning. And joint pain is one. The example I use a lot is like my joints feel way better. My joints feel way better than they did. Like I really feel like I'm gaining health and function back that I had in my 20s. That I just turned 41 this summer, and I do feel like I'm kind of gaining back a lot of that. So the longer I'm on this diet, the more I become like convinced. Like the longer I'm on it, the more I believe it's intuitive, it's easy, it's the most natural way to just like maintain health in an easy way without having to like try too hard without having to take supplements, without having to take powders and pills and mixes, like just eating raw food, eating food that you would find and eat in its natural form. Like I really I'm convinced enough to create a class around it and to create some different things around it here. And I really do think that kind of once you get through that detoxification period, the other side is worth getting through that. But you kind of have to know that there is a detox period going in, because otherwise you're going to get to it and you're going to feel like low energy and you're going to feel weak, and you're just going to say, well, this isn't the right diet for me if I don't feel right on it or don't feel good on it. So I think it's really helpful to have that mindset. So yeah, I'm on the other side now, and I really do feel like it's just the most intuitive diet. It's the most natural diet, just to like look at the world and say, what is the world trying to give us to eat? Like, what would we find and eat in its natural form, or in its natural forms? And then trust that those foods that you would just find and eat, raw food, just has what your body needs in it. You don't have to worry about getting all your, the right percentage of macros and getting this vitamin and that vitamin and getting your B12 and getting, all your, how much protein am I getting in a day? Like, you're just like eating raw food, ideal foods that you would find and eat in their natural form, and trusting that like that gives your body what it needs. And that kind of has been my experience going forward. And I just feel like it's a very natural and intuitive diet, and it's a sustainable diet. Like, to me, it's like, from this end of things, it's just very, like, from my perspective, it's very obvious. It's very obvious that like my appetite is working right. These foods make me feel clean. They make me feel healthy. I feel like I have, general health. And again, I think things are kind of trending in the right direction. So, I that's kind of been my experience transitioning. It is a hard process. If you are going to try a raw food diet, it is, I think it's very important to listen to some different people who have gone through it and hear their experiences. There's a bunch of different YouTubers out there and people out there that are relaying their experiences as well. But I do become more and more convinced by the day that this is just like how we're supposed to be eating, and it's the healthiest way for us to be eating, and it's the easiest way to maintain long-term sustainable health into adulthood. So that's my experience transitioning to a raw food diet. And again, in the course, I try to I relay some of these same things, kind of my own experience transitioning to a raw food diet and lifestyle. But I also try to give a well-rounded picture at different pieces of the diet, different slants on it, different food groups. What would you eat? What wouldn't you eat? So in the course, again, I try to give a well-rounded picture of what it's like to be on a raw food diet, and why you might want to make that change or try to make that change. So if you're interested in kind of exploring that more, the course is in the notes below.